I take the train to and from work every day. It saves on gas, and not to mention parking, which is now close to $10 a day downtown. As a bonus, rather than dealing with the stress of rush hour traffic, I can settle into my seat with a good book and let the train carry me through the city. Sure, there was the occasional unruly passenger, but security usually took care of them right away. You never want to mess with those guys. Other than that, the security staff were all pretty friendly. My favorite officer, Dave, especially so. You could tell he loved his job. He got to know just about everybody by name, even me. Whenever I saw him step onto the train during his shift, it brightened my day. Unfortunately, Dave passed away a few weeks ago. He ended up having a heart attack during one of his shifts. One comfort I take in all this is that I wasn't there to see it. I was running late from work that day and had to take a later train than usual. However, the other regulars I typically ride with told me all about it the next day. That's the thing about being a regular on the public transit circuit. Sure, you find comfort in seeing the familiar faces. Sometimes you even make a friend or two, but these friends you make are quick to tell you all the dirty details when something goes wrong. I was told it was a pretty normal ride up until Dave started behaving strangely. His eyes glossed over, and no one could get his attention no matter how hard they tried. It was as if he were in a trance. Suddenly, he gasped and looked toward the front of the train car. His blank stare was replaced with one of pure terror. No one knew what exactly he saw, but whatever it was really disturbed him. He was muttering something along the lines of, "Last chance." No one understood what he was talking about. He held up his hand as if to shield himself from whatever it was that he saw, then clutched his chest and collapsed to the floor, dead. To say it was unsettling was an understatement. After hearing the story, I noticed the mood in the train changed, as if a dark cloud had passed over. I was so glad I wasn't there to see it, but just hearing about it made me want to throw up. A heart attack, it seemed hard to believe. He seemed pretty healthy, I told the other passengers, who mumbled in agreement. Brett, the guard who usually worked alongside Dave, and was a good friend of his outside work, stepped in, saying that Dave didn't take good care of himself and that his doctor kept telling him he needed to change his lifestyle, and he was running out of chances to do so. Apparently, he didn't listen. Some people really don't take their health seriously. Heart attacks, cancer, strokes, those are things that happen to other people. So when we get the warning from the doctor to eat better, quit drinking, or stop smoking, we don't always listen as we should. Until it's too late. A few weeks later, the buzz about the incident finally died down, and everything seemed back to normal. I found myself back on the train on my way home from work, a copy of Stephen King's latest book, Billy Summers, in my hands. I was ready for another uneventful commute home. The ride was just like any other at first. The train would stop, people would shuffle in, people would shuffle out, and the train would continue on its predestined route. After about halfway through the commute, however, the lights in the cabin flickered on and off abruptly. Startled, I looked up from my book. The train seemed fine, but confusion set in when I saw that it was pitch black outside. I couldn't see anything. No buildings, no streetlights, no roads. I thought to myself, I must have fallen asleep. However, security would have definitely woken my ass up if I had overstayed my welcome. Also, even if it were later in the day, I would still be able to see some light outside, streetlights at the very least. But there was nothing. Only a deep, pervading blackness. I checked my phone. Dead. Perfect, I thought. The other possibility was that I had fallen asleep and was still dreaming. That seemed logical, but I felt wide awake. Just in case, I took out one of the Sharpies I keep in my briefcase and drew an X on my left hand. I thought, if it is a dream, and I wake up, it won't be there. It sounds stupid, I know, but to be honest, I wasn't in the best state of mind. The lights in the cabins flickered again and went out for a few seconds. Shortly after, red emergency lights flooded the cabin, giving it an eerie glow. Outside, I could see cracked cement walls. It looked as if the train had passed into some sort of tunnel. I looked around at the other passengers. I didn't recognize any of them from my usual route. They all sat hunched forward, staring at the floor. I couldn't see their faces, but they all seemed unfazed by what was happening. I decided to just ride this out, whatever this was. What else could I do? As the train rolled along the rails, time seemed inconsequential. I couldn't tell if I had been riding for seconds, hours, or days. It was torture. I just wanted it to end. At some point, the train began to slow down, its brakes screeching against the metal tracks. I heard the familiar bing as the train came to a complete stop. The cold, automated voice announced, "This is the train's final destination," yet the doors didn't open. No one stirred. As I stood up to try and leave, I heard a rattle. It was the door that connected the cabins together. I froze. Someone was coming in. As if a spell were broken, the passengers looked up in unison toward the front of the cabin, then slowly turned to face me. I was finally able to see their faces and wished to God I hadn't. Every passenger had a pair of black eyeless sockets. Little red rivers ran slowly from each hole, as if they were crying tears of blood. At that point, I had enough of this nightmare. I started to leave, when the door to the front of the cabin swung open, revealing a tall figure. I froze in place once again, unable to look away. Slow, heavy footsteps made their way toward me. As the figure got closer, I felt a sudden sharp pain in my upper right abdomen. It felt as if my liver was throbbing and was going to burst. When it was almost upon me, I noticed what the figure was wearing: black work boots and a security guard uniform. I forced myself to look at the name tag, already knowing what I was going to see. Dave. When I saw his face, the same blackness filled each of his eyes, pouring out streams of blood. Dave, or whatever this thing was, stared down at my hand, still pressed against my abdomen. "Last chance," he said as he gestured toward the source of my pain. He backed away, and the sliding doors opened. Dave pointed toward them, saying, "You can leave this time." I did just that, and as I walked out of the doors, I was greeted with daylight. I rubbed my eyes and found myself back in my seat, the train exactly as it should be. Passengers, streets, and buildings, all of which I recognized. Relief washed over me. It was just a crazy dream, I thought. However, as I looked down at my left hand, I was met with the little black X I drew in the dream. Perhaps I did it in my sleep, but paranoia sank in. I had this overwhelming need to call my doctor and schedule a physical. I haven't seen him in over 3 years, so I'm way overdue. I hope everything comes back to normal.